Alright guys, this is going to be the first video for 2020. So I'm going to be taking a look at this server box that I got very recently. Finally got this in my hands. And I put the rollers on this server. I ordered this for the other server and I decided I wasn't going to use them, and I thought they'd look pretty nice on my server, on my box. So this server that I got was a T440. This is a T420, and of course the chassis is identical, except that the new one, the T440, didn't have this Dell logo, and these were a little bit more squared off right here. But nonetheless, everything else is the same. So kind of funny that. This box has, get down here in the back, two 750 watt power supplies, redundant power supplies. We've got a decent amount, a usable amount anyway, of USB ports, two NICs, a serial port, and an onboard VGA right here. I don't care about the iDRAC stuff. It's not important to me. The one thing that it's got a big ass fan right here too. The one thing that's going to maybe be an issue, I'm going to have to look at the cables, is for power, a PCI Express power cable. I didn't see one on this power supply, so I saw a place off of the power supply. It looked like there might be a cable you plug in there for such a beast, but I will have to investigate on that. This has hot swap SAS drives in it, 3.5s. Just went right into the shade there. This is a metal front. Covers the drive, so in case you want to take a whack at it with a hammer, you've got protection there, or a foot comes in contact or whatever like that. So anyway, this thing weighs a ton, and so got to get up on the bench and crack this bad boy open. Stay tuned. Alright, here we go. Having casters on this server makes it pretty nice to work on, actually. Just spin that sucker around there. So this front metal grate comes off. It's got a little lock up here. You push down on that and the whole thing just pops off. There's some screws for one of the caddies. I've got the extra caddy down here. I had some spare caddies that I used in the other server. This server has, this is one left over from all that. This server has 600 gig SAS drives in it. If I can get this to come out of here, there we go. Dell SAS drives. Come on, focus. There you go. These cameras, I tell you what, they just don't really want to focus that fast. But there we go. It's got 4 of these bad boys in it. And I'm not exactly sure why, but it's only got a gig of storage. Now I know a RAID 5, you're reducing your total capacity because of the RAID 5, but I would have, I mean, this should be 2.4 terabytes minus RAID 5 configuration. I would have thought 1.5 terabytes. 600 gig, these are probably like 500 something formatted, but I would have thought 1.5 gig once they're formatted in the RAID 5 configuration, somewhere around in there. But no, it's only a gig, so I'm guessing it wasn't fully partitioned. But I'm going to go and pull all these out, and I'm going to mark them because I'm going to save them for now, just in case I have to get data off of these for some reason. Now, I already did all the migration and all the data files and all that stuff, but the one thing I'm concerned about is we migrated them from an old Exchange server to Google email, and they have a migration tool that you run on the computers, and it grabs all the email and the address book and all that stuff and sends it up to Google. So in case there's some kind of an email that's missing, we don't find out for like 6 months or so, I'll be able to pop these hard drives back into the server and boot it up as if nothing was ever molested with the server, and be able to retrieve those emails from the now dormant Exchange server. So I want to make sure that I get these labeled appropriately as to which hard drive bay they were in, and then we're going to swap the caddies, the hard drives in the caddies anyway, for, I think they're sitting back there, aren't they? Where did they go? Ah, there they are. These bad boys right here, they came out of the other server box I did the video on. These Seagate 3 terabyte hard drives right here. I got 4 of those bad boys. That's going to give me quite a bit of storage. Now these are SATA drives, not SAS drives. Now I have no expectation of these just working in this new server box, since this is a SAS controller, but the backplane is for both. So, and I actually did test it because I was like, this really? But yes, the backplane does work for both. So if the SATA RAID controller that's already in here, that doesn't work with the SATA drives, then I've still got this controller that came out of the other server. It's got those same cables right there. Just plug into those, and bingo, bango, bongo, we are in business. So that's the task at hand for right now. Marking drives and swapping drives and caddies and all that fun stuff. Let's go ahead and pop this down right here. I'm going to drop that hard drive if I don't move it. I don't know why this doesn't want to move here. We'll come back just a second. Okay, there we go. So as you can see, the card actually looks pretty similar. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if it isn't actually an Adaptec card. Even though it's a PERC 3, I think it's a 330. I don't know how much difference these things really physically in reality really are. The one thing obviously is I'd have to swap out that back plane, that back, not plane, but the I/O shield there. Hopefully those would swap. It looks like that one's got screws on it as well, holding it to the card just like this one does. Hopefully they're in the same place. That would make life easier. Taking a look at this thing on the inside here, this is a standard EATX motherboard, at least in shape. We've got 2 PCI Express 16 slots right there, and the rest of those are 8 slots. We do have 2 processors down here too, behind that Dell shroud. This is the power supply up here. It's got the onboard RAID too we could use. See, we've got the onboard power supply here, and you got that connector right there. Right there you can see. And that's what I'm thinking might be able to be used for a PCIe plug. And there's also one right there too. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of investigating on that. But for right now, I don't have anything to plug into there. And I haven't seen an actual PCI Express cable hanging down, but I haven't gone into too much depth on that. I don't think there's anything back in here, no. There's a bunch of yellow cables though. This goes to the back plane to provide power for all those, and then this one right here is probably CPU power right there. It does have a 24 pin right there, but I don't know if that's standard ATX or not. It doesn't really quite look like it to me, so I'm gonna have to figure out a way to make this work for PCIe power somehow. But hopefully those connectors right there. In fact, it actually does say GPU power. It actually does. I don't know if I can get the camera to focus on that, but let's just see if it'll focus right there. Yeah, it says GPU power on that PCB, that green PCB. That says GPU power as well right there, actually. Okay, so that's good to know. So that means that this has two 8-pin PCIe connectors, theoretically, if I have the cables to plug into that. Yeah, oh, come on, focus. There we go. Manually focus this thing. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to take a look behind the shroud here, the big Dell shroud. Show you the beauty behind this. And get it to come out. There we go. And you can see right there, we got all kinds of RAM slots we're going to populate eventually. But we're not in too big of a hurry to do that right now, because even though there's only that memory stick right there and this one down here, it's still got 32 gig of RAM, so I'm not going to be in too big a hurry to populate all those slots right now. These are LGA 2011 Xeons. The model escapes me at the moment, but I'm sure I will figure that out later on when I get this thing booted back. They're both 1.9 gigahertz, 6 core, 15 meg cache chips if I remember my CPU ID correctly. And like I said, we do have numero uno and numero dos processors right here. So we've got 12 physical cores. I think these are hyper-threaded. I'm not sure. I'll have to double check that again. So I think that's going to be about it for this. So I guess I'm going to go ahead and do the hard drive swap into the caddies there, and we'll get a operating system loaded on this, and it will be probably 2019 actually, because I do have the product key for that. We'll do 2019 on this thing, which is build 1809 that I saw, and we'll see how it performs if we can get those hard drives working with that controller. I'm just kind of curious to see if it actually is possible. It's not supposed to be, but maybe it is. We'll find out. You know, it's always interesting when you start taking apart computers that another network IT person ordered and took care of and replaced and yada yada yada. It's always interesting when you find unexpected things, and kind of wonder what the heck they were doing and thinking here. Just like these little guys right here, these might be kind of fun to play with on their own. It's got this crazy adapter on here too. Tell you what, that thing feels like it's made out of a 57 Chevy right there. There's a lot of metal on there. But the funny thing is the reason I bring this up is you got this one, you got this one, but then you got these first two that were just normal 3.5s. So I don't know. I hadn't replaced any hard drives in this server since we took the account over about 2 years ago now. But maybe 2 of these had failed in the past, and these were the replacement drives that he got. I'm not sure. They're still 15K 600 gig drives, SAS drives. But it's just kind of interesting that 2 different size drives. So that should be cool to play with. Get those out of there. Maybe down the road we'll have a new home for those. This thing does have weird performance. Like, it's really slow, and I I know it's not because of the processors, it's because these dang hard drives are very freaking slow. I wonder if that's why. Well, anyway, I do have, I don't know if it's in here or not. No, I didn't leave it in here, but I do have from the other server when I ordered it, came with a brand new 4 terabyte drive. So if nothing else, if these don't work, I might just shove him in there and call it good for now. So, all right, let's get to work. That was way too many screws. But we got them out there, so woo! Here we go. Kind of wondering if the performance problems with this was because those drives are smaller, because even though they're both 15,000 RPM, these drives should actually have a faster transfer rate because they got the smaller platters. So they should actually be pretty nice performing hard drives, actually. But I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna hang on to these for a few months. Probably stash them at work or something, just in case I need to get the Exchange server off of them for some boot up, get something out of the Exchange server, an email or whatever. But oh, now I gotta do all that in reverse. Unfortunately, these have like little tiny Phillips, really tiny little Phillips heads on them there. So I had to use my screwdriver right here instead of my drill, because the tip on that's just a little bit too big. So, well, now I gotta reverse that process. So, all right, here we go with that. Woo! Looks like that slot right there is going to be the one that I want to use for the graphics card, GPU. See, it says Gen 3 16X CPU 1. That one's the one that's in the middle of the motherboard. This one down here says the same thing, except it says CPU 2. I wanted to kind of space it away from that heatsink right there. That actually does get pretty warm after the server's been on for like a week now. Maybe not quite a week, but quite a few days actually. But there we go. Focus. Come on. There you go. Yeah, so I'm going to use that slot for the GPU, and it'll space it out nicely. These plugs right here, I think I actually have a solution for those that requires me not having to go order something from Dell. What would that be? Well, Ryzen, the Ryzen build will come to the rescue. Woo! It's always good to save those spare cables when you buy one of them fancy 1200 watt power supplies, because you just never know what they're going to come in handy for. Now I'm guessing, I'm going to have to check the voltages before I go assuming, but I'm guessing this, because this is, you know, got that same plug on both ends. I just plug one end into there, one end into the video card. Come on, focus. One end into the video card, which is going to be there, the 9800 that I've got in the system video editor now. And yeah, then you got the second one back there for the second plug. So I think this is one. Let's hope I've got two. I should have two. The power supply I thought had, yeah, here's another one right here. Here's the other guy right there. So we're going to plug both of these into the 1500 watt Sparky right there and feed that video card. Woo! So I've got a video card shoved in here, and you know, I'm going to do the right thing and just plug these into it and hope that it works and hope that it doesn't burn up or fry. Hoping that it's just going to work, because you know that's the way we roll, right? We live dangerously. So if this card blows up, I'm not going to care too much. But let's see what happens. Let's go ahead and fire up this server here and see if we can make any magic smoke appear. Nothing wants to happen. It might be upset about plugging that video card in. That's just without pulling the power cables. I don't know that I needed to, but okay, let's try it again here. Came up and nothing went smoky, so let's see if the monitor kicks on here. I may have to go into the BIOS and enable that slot for video, I'm not sure. So even if it doesn't come up this moment, doesn't mean it ain't gonna work. I'm assuming that cable goes to that monitor. I think it does. It's going into that general vicinity of the, well, the kind of back in there. And I think we're gonna have to enable the monitor, the GPU, and the BIOS. Yep, it went to that monitor instead. I just plugged it in. Hello. We're not past that point yet, so let's go ahead and F ourselves into the BIOS here. The only bad thing about servers is that it takes them an awful long time to boot up compared to a desktop PC. But I guess I could zoom you guys out there. I guess it's already zoomed out. Okay, well. Let's just get into the BIOS like I'm telling you to do here. Come on, Dell. Jeepers criminy. We're not locked up here. It's telling that right up there, but still. Okay, there we go. Oh crap, there's a lot of screen flicker. Woo, my goodness. Hang on. Okay, I enabled it in the BIOS, disabled the onboard graphics. I couldn't show it on camera because of wicked camera flash there. Screen flash, but let's see if this works or not. It should. I don't know why it wouldn't, but and there we go, look at that. Turned our server into a high performance workstation with an 8800 GTS. Okay, so I know that the cables are good. I figured they would be, but you just never know. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and put a real video card in this system. Alright guys, so we're going to do the talking hand thing here. Unfortunately, this motherboard just does not like this 980. Very, very unfortunate. We're going to pet the 980 because the 980 is not at fault here. At least I don't think so. I don't really know. But we're going to pet it because, you know, it's a good card. The system does the Dell post logo. It goes through and shows the memory count. It goes and shows the RAID controller. Does all that initialization stuff. The screen goes black. It stays black. There's a little bit of activity on the hard drives, but not much for just like maybe a second. It stays there. Black screen for like a minute or two. Then it reboots. Starts the whole thing over again. Put the 8800, the 8800 GTS back in it, and that works fine. I also, as you can see, I moved the card down from the CPU 1 slot to the CPU 2 slot just for shits and giggles to see if that made any difference. And I also tried it without the RAID controller installed. Same result. I put the 8800 GTS back in it, booted it up, got into Windows. I installed the latest Dell firmware BIOS, which is dated 2018, so it's a fairly modern BIOS. Because I was thinking it might be some kind of a bug with the UEFI and the video card, because I have run into that before and I had to update the BIOS to fix it. No go. Still does the same thing. BIOS is several revisions newer than what was on here, and if anything, well, it should have had fixes for the UEFI by now. If that's the problem, and I don't know if that's the problem. I'm guessing that's the problem, but I don't know for sure. The 470 that was in my mom's computer, if you were watching the last live stream, I pulled that out of that computer. I tried that in this computer, and it did the exact same thing. Unfortunately, because I put my Red Devil 580 in my mom's computer, I no longer have that to test to see if the Radeon family also has that same problem. I have a 7730 that I'm using right now in the editing the FX80 350 workstation behind me, because I pulled this out of it and I needed something so I could watch some YouTube videos with. That's the only fairly modern Radeon graphics card that I currently have at hand. I have a 260 or something like that as well. Maybe I'll go ahead and try that. Now that I think about it, I'm not sure where that card is right now though. It's like a 260, 265, Radeon R265 or 260, something like that. Yeah, unfortunately, I can't seem to make this work. And I even tried booting it into, I switched it in the system setup, as Dell calls it, or the BIOS settings. I switched it from UEFI boot to BIOS boot, and it still does the exact same thing. So, I don't know at this point. Unfortunately, because of the way this thing's acting, I can't even get in the system set up with this video card installed. I have to switch out the card, or actually I do have to switch out the card because I disabled the onboard video, so I do have to switch out the card just to be able to get back in the system setup. So this is a real big setback a setback that I was not expecting to happen. Very unfortunate. I did enable some. This isn't the reason for the problem. I just did it while I was in there messing with this, trying to make this work. There were some performance options, some memory interleaving that I enabled. There was also a setting in there for power. There is a performance per watt setting, and I just set that to performance because I just want performance. Screw the wattage. So I'm going to see if those little enhancements, performance enhancements, there's a couple other settings that I'm forgetting at the moment here. I'm going to see if all of that stuff makes any kind of improvement to our Cinebench score. Curious. I don't think it will, but I would like to be proved wrong, frankly. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing it jump up like 500 points. That would be pretty cool. But anyway, looks to me like so far the 980 is SOL for this system anyway. Okay, here's a 260, guys. Oh, no, it's a 270. R9 270 is what the sticker says right there, I guess. Let's hope that this card works because it does have the outputs that I need on it. So, let's see. And this only takes one power plug. So let's see if this means anything. It doesn't look to me like this thing wants to work with these Radeon video cards either, and that's a real bummer. That's a real bummer. Going to sleep. Yeah, well, that's because I unplugged you. I mean, the monitor thinks there's a signal coming from the video card, but, well, yeah, I mean, but it's just not displaying anything, so. You know, as funny as it seems, apparently the most modern, fastest video card that I have that works in the system is my fancy dual GPU 295X right there. It seems to be passing the test so far. Let's see if it passes the boot. I get my shtick here to hold this frickin' camera. Scanning for devices. I don't know if I gotta change something in the BIOS or not. I might have to. Yeah, I gotta set the. I gotta go back in there and change the UEFI. But I couldn't even see this with the Radeon cards. Well, there's the same test as I ran a little bit while ago with the 8800 GTS, and I'm actually surprised. You know, the dual GPU card is only just about 2.5 times faster than the 8800 GTS. So, I mean, that 8800 GTS. I mean, you know, this is a pretty kick-ass video card. I mean, being only a single GPU. I mean, it holds its own pretty good against the supposedly newer architecture of the 295, but this is the only test that allowed me to run again. So according to Cinebench, after I did those performance tweaks in the BIOS, the last run I had before I did that was exactly 1100. That's what I saved it as. Now, after doing all those performance tweaks, I went up 33 points. So it did make a difference. Well, after Googling and coming across Dell's message board, a lot of people having the same issue with this thing, I now have GTX 980 running in the system. What was the problem? Well, some people did say that there was a bug in the UEFI BIOS on this thing, and that's where I was leaning towards too, but as it turns out, disabling MMIO, memory mapped IO for PCIe in the BIOS is what fixed it, because it's supposed to allow PCI devices, you know, remaps that 4 gig memory thing, blah blah blah. disabling that, it fixed the problem. Now, I have not tried the Radeon cards, because I really don't care if a Radeon card works in this, because the 980 is far superior to that. The other thing I just realized too is I was looking up the processor for this thing, and I was under the impression that this was a 2011 socket, but it's actually a 1356 Xeon. So I'm looking at on eBay. I was just looking at the V2 version of this processor, and they're like 12 bucks. So might be able to snag ourselves a pretty cheap upgrade for this server on the processor side of things. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to run my benchmark on this thing with the well, we're going to look at Ada64/Everest and look at the specs on the system. We'll run its benchmark. I was curious to see where it lines up on the chart. And then we'll rerun 3D Mark, and we'll run Cinebench again, because I did make another change in the BIOS for another supposed performance improvement with the caching and stuff. So we'll see if any of that makes a difference. Alright, so the first one I'm going to do is just my typical CPU queen. We'll see where that falls in the chart here. And 62,025. That's not too shabby. I don't mind that at all. Definitely quite a ways down from the Ryzen Threadripper there, but we're not too far down the list, I suppose. Or I don't know. I guess I'm kind of surprised that it's not outpacing the Core the Hexa-Core i7 right there, but that is an Extreme Edition, and it is running at 3300 megahertz. I don't know if that's a turbo clock or not. This is a turbo clock, what it's detecting mine is here, so yeah, I think we'll get some more CPU performance out of this thing if we just upgrade the CPUs, right? Maybe get them to the V2s at least. I think that's all this motherboard supports, is up to the V2. And this does confirm what I looked up, LGA 1356, which I think those are actually cheaper than the 2011s because they're not as common for reuse in desktops. I had forgot. I wanted to run Cinebench real quick again. So here's the last run right here, 1133. Before I've made the various changes in the BIOS again. I just enabled something that supposedly makes the caching work better between the processors, and I don't know if it'll make a difference or not. Watch the score go down. 1133, we're looking for at least as good, if not better. We're just optimizing the system is what we're doing here. We'll get as much out of these little chips as we can. And there we go. 1131. Remember what I said about might end up getting a lower score? At least it's not like half the score. Let's run that again here. I've discovered with Cinebench, it's like you run it, you get a nice high score, and you run it again, and you're like 50 points lower the second time. It's kind of annoying like that, but I'm looking at the list of Xeon chips, and it looks like the fastest clock speed processor, they have two of them. The fastest clock speed they had was 2.5. They have that both in 6 and 8 core. The 10 core was 2.4 gigahertz. So, and we're 1133 again. So that caching thing I enabled in the BIOS didn't make one diddly squat of difference, but it didn't hurt anything either, so we'll leave it. But anyway, I'm looking at processors for this. It looks like the V2s are as high as they went for these 1356 motherboards. It's interesting because the firmware BIOS firmware that I downloaded for this motherboard says that they added microcode for the E5 2600 V2 chips, but as far as I can tell from the Xeon list, the 2600s were only available in the 2011 socket, so I don't know why Dell would put a microcode into their motherboard for a processor socket that's not on the motherboard. which actually makes me think that there's no difference between the 2011 and the 1356 processors and the motherboards. It's just a socket change and nothing else. Anyway, you didn't hear that from any official source, right? So, I mean, we're doing pretty good here. I mean, we've doubled our performance, at least. The 3770S, which is what I was running in the system before I put the FX in there. The 4790S was the what I put in my mom's computer. And we're, looking at the 3770S there, that was 634. So we're, not quite, but close enough to government work. Doubled our performance there. It took 12 cores to do it. But that is a 3.1 gigahertz chip. So, I mean, clock speed does matter. I mean, I'll check the Radeon card one last time and see if what I did fixed the Radeon cards as well in this system. But other than that, I think I'm basically done with this. I may still throw an SSD in the system, but I might not do that right away. And it looks like that I can confirm that, yes, that did fix the Radeon card as well. So this is a thing. That change has to be made before you put the video card in, because once you put the video card in, you ain't got no display. So you got to install the driver here. So it's one of those things that you got to kind of figure out. It's just the way this stuff is. But once you figure it out, I was sitting there saying to myself, this should work. I just didn't see a reason why it shouldn't work. But we figured out what was the option in the BIOS. Thank God it had the option to disable. And it looks like it also fixed the Radeon cards as well. So I just looked at this R9270. This is not a particularly fast card for modern day standards. I can barely do like 40 frames per second in what's that game? GTA 5. It's not a very good card for that, but for gaming, it's adequate. It's okay, but it's no speed damage. It definitely leaves a lot to be desired. But it does have DisplayPort and HDMI in the back of it, so I may just leave this in here because I really wouldn't need any more than this, honestly. Well, here's the benchmark run for the Radeon R9270. It's like a quarter of the performance of the other one, basically. A little bit more than a quarter, a third of the performance, I guess, but yeah, that's to be expected, I suppose. Well, I think I'll just stick with this card because it's not a gaming card, so it'll be good to go for my system. This front display is full of shit. Now it's giving me a fan 2 error. Before it gave me a processor CPU 1 error. Now it thinks there's a bad fan. Display's full of shit, man. But it's still kind of cool, though. Alright, so it's been 2 months, I guess, now. Going on 2 months since I filmed all this, and I'm just now sitting down to edit it together. Got other projects in the works and stuff for other channels, but the Dell Xeon has not let me down in the slightest. I'm gone with Cyberlink Power Director that I'm using for this system to edit videos with, giving that a try. Running Server 2019. And I set the display to display the ambient temperature. If I get it to actually doesn't quite want to show on the camera, but anyway, it's a nice quiet system. Yeah, I wish those hard drives were a little bit faster. Still haven't put an SSD in it, but that's probably going to happen because I did just acquire a 500 gig SSD, so I'll probably go ahead and put that in the system. As you can see, I'm just editing the video right now that you just watched, and it is like February 22nd, 2020. We are well into the new... We're well into the 20s, guys. We have made it into the 2020s, the roaring 20s. So I still haven't done any upgrading to the CPUs. It's been working just fine the way that it is. I really haven't even looked at it because I haven't really had the money to waste in upgrading the system. That wouldn't really be a waste, but it's less important than other things going on right now. Um, it's a solid station. I haven't had one crash with it. It does do a double boot though, and I don't know why that is. You turn it on and it fans roar up, and then it shuts off, and then does that a second time and comes back up, and it says that the system daemon or whatever he called rebooted the system because of some kind of internal error, and then it goes on. And I don't recall it being there before I put that when I was doing this earlier, and it might be because of that RAID controller. I'm not really sure. It's not something that's affecting the system's functionality. It's just kind of annoying that it double boots like that. But I set the BIOS up to just continue on errors, so I don't have to hit there, whatever, and press the keyboard to continue. Hit that keyboard. That's what I'm talking about. But anyway. So I figured I'd just go ahead and throw us at the end of the video, and thank you guys for watching, because I didn't really care for the ending of the stuff I recorded, but just to give you guys kind of a 2-month into it update, it's been running fine. I haven't put a 3.0 USB card in it. At some point I would like to do that, but again, it hasn't really been an issue. I have a USB 3.0 card, but I was never crazy about the performance of that, so I'm going to have to look into that too. The Radeon R9 270, PowerLink Cyber Director, PowerLink here, or Power Director, CyberLink Power Director, yeah, that's what it's called. Actually has GPU acceleration for encoding with this video card, so that's nice. I figure I don't really want to use the 980 in here because I like that card for testing purposes, if nothing else. But since this is a video editing machine, that card's capabilities would probably get wasted. But now that I know, actually, I didn't know that this could take advantage of GPU rendering. So now that I know that, I probably will go ahead and try the 980 in it and see how much of a boost in rendering speed that gives me. And that's another thing, since this can take advantage of GPU acceleration, it doesn't really use the CPU as much then, but the scrubbing of the timeline is a little bit sluggish on here. The playback is fine, unlike Kdenlive. Kdenlive, it couldn't play itself back for nothing. But the timeline on here is a little sluggish working around, but for the most part, I like the software. So, anyway, guys, this video has gone 43 minutes, and I guess we're going to go another 5 apparently here. So, I'll leave you guys to your own devices, as Chris Perillo would say. Peace out, and we will see you again right here on the Wayback Tech channel. Please rate, share, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. If you've made it this long in the video, I sure do appreciate it. There's just a lot to go over in this video, so hope if anyone's thinking about converting a server into a workstation, this will at least give you a little bit of an idea as to what could be involved in doing that. So we'll see you guys again right here on the Wayback Tech channel. Peace out.